Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, and you're listening to Incredible Life Creator Podcast. My guest today is Etan Boritzer. Etan Boritzer is a publisher at Veronica Lane Books since 1992. And we were just talking before the podcast. He said he just moved to Florida, the beautiful beaches of Florida. So good for
Yes.
you on that. But thanks for coming to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Dr. Linert. Appreciate being here. Definitely. Love to speak with you.
Yeah, and just so people can get to know you, why don't you tell us your story?
It's a story. It's a story. I'll go backwards. Right now, the last 20 years or so, I've been deeply immersed in Veronica Lane Books, my publishing company. I launched that company because I had a lot of problems getting my first children's books published through a traditional publisher. In fact, I wrote that book in 1975, and it only found a publisher in 1990. So if anybody is thinking they have a good property, hold on to it, never lose faith. I had over 100 rejection slips, notes, letters, emails from literary agents, editors, publishers. No, thank you. Then I found a maverick publisher, a Dutchman, who said, yeah, this is a good book. I'm going to publish this book. I said, you will? And so, so that book did really well, actually. It's called What is God? And it was ahead of its time. Maybe that's why nobody got it, but it's an all denominational look at for children. It's a picture book. So we talk about everybody. We talk about Jesus. We talk about Muhammad, Buddha, Moses, and show more how ways of looking at God are more alike than they are actually different. So that book did well, but then the second book in the series, What is Love? I was having the same problem finding a new publisher, and I had two very good agents, two ladies in New York City, and they were going like, I don't know, Etan, I don't know why we can't, your first book's so great, and this book is, and it was same author, same illustrator, and after a while, we both gave up, and I had a business partner at that time. I was in the art gallery business, and his name is James Gray, and business partner. And I said, Jim, think about it. What is it to publishing to publishing a book? And we broke it down. Okay, write the book. Okay, print the book, sell the book. Hey, that sounds simple. So that's how we started Veronica Lane Books, my company, just to get past all the traditional types of gatekeepers, the 28-year-old Yale graduates who have a BA in English or something and know everything about what is literature and so on. And so the books have done fantastic. We have 16 books in 17 languages now. We've sold rights. We got to understand it's a little more complicated than write it, print it, and sell it. It's a little more complicated. But by the grace of God and our own pure intentions and efforts, we've been able to get this book out. So that's 20 years of that. Previous to that, I owned an art gallery, as I mentioned. Previous to that, I was an actor in Hollywood. You can look up my IMDb if you're familiar, and you'll see the different small roles I had in large movies and large series, but there was a writer's strike in Hollywood in 1989. That knocked everybody out for about a year. That's when I went into the art gallery business. And before that, grew up in the Bronx, New York, turned on, tuned in, dropped out, like all good hippies did in the late 60s, and experienced all of it. Woodstock, went to India, studied yoga in a traditional ashram and meditation, and have been teaching yoga and meditation all these years as well. So it's an avocation, which I love, and I've taught all over the world, actually. So that's, in brief, my 72 years.
Wow, you have done a lot in 72 years.
I'm still going, Kimberly. I feel like I'm just getting started. I finally met the woman of my life 5 years ago, and it's the best time ever. I'm very happy.
Beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone wants that one. My grandmother, before she passed, she said, you always need a friend. What she
Yeah,
meant was you always need a partner. You need somebody
yeah.
to talk to for companionship and who loves you and
You
you
can
love each other.
trust and they
Mhm.
can trust you, and you have your conspiratorial moments and all the fun things, so, and all the serious things too, obviously, and the ups and the downs. Tell you a little bit about Patricia, who you know because you interviewed her. She's a dream analyst, so there's nothing hidden anymore because I have to tell her my dreams. So she knows what's going on through, beneath the surface. So we talk about our dreams uh, and many other types of open communication like that. So it's very valuable. I might add that her mentor, Dr. Pat Allen, who's very famous, you might know her, might interview her, relationship expert and so on. When we've had any ups and downs, or downs, put it that way, Dr. Allen's been there, and I've kind of learned, they told me I was teachable. I kind of learned the system that Patricia has followed for the last 26 years of, male-female relationship, relating, that is, relating, communication. So just a shout out to my dear partner.
Yes. So what are some of the biggest lessons or learnings you've had about relationships? Because you've done a lot of different things, you've been around the world. What are some of your nuggets of wisdom?
Well, actually, Kimberly, I just have to refer right back to Dr. Allen, Dr. Pat Allen. I mentioned her name again. There's the 3 C's, okay? There's chemistry, there's communication, and compatibility. So we all know what chemistry is. Okay, but she says that's going to last like 2 years.
Mhm.
If the other 2 are not there, you might have it, chemistry. Communication is the art of communication. And there we go into the semantics. That was her doctoral dissertation, is on actual semantics between males and females. I'll break that down in a minute. And then compatibility is really not that we like riding Harley Davidsons together, okay, which we don't, but you know what I mean. People say, oh yeah, we love to go fishing together, we love to play golf together. It's compatibility is your long-term compatibility, that you focus long-term on what you want, that way. So it's a bigger kind of compatibility. Now, the communication part, you asked me the nuggets of wisdom I've learned along the way. I'd say the last 5 years, put it that way. We could go into the teachings of the Buddha. We can go deeper and deeper into nuggets of wisdom category. But it's that women, girls need to be cherished. Okay, that's number one, cherished. Men need to be respected. Okay, so that's the basic difference in relationships, in communication, that category of communication. So, in other words, we've learned, neurolinguistics, of course. And people say, I want you to be happy. Now, what's wrong with that? There is something wrong with that, which, the average person, what's wrong with that? I'm just intending that I want you to be, no, I want to help you be happy. And there's this difference, right?
The difference between want and help.
Yeah, I want, and this is what I want. I want you to be. Is I want to help you be happy. What is it, that right now would make you happy, would make you feel good? Because women are about their feelings. Okay, so remember that in the communication. This is nuggets of wisdom. If anybody wants, because you brought up relationship, and then men want to be respected. So it's not, what are you feeling, honey? It's like, what do you think, honey? Men want to be addressed about this, and I'm just speaking in typical gender terms. Doesn't matter if you're gay, what your relationships are. Someone even in a gay couple is going to be the more masculine, and someone's going to be more feminine. So whatever role you're playing, then you need to learn how you're communicating with the other party and who that other party is. And so that I'm just scratching the surface there of what Dr. Allen, what Patricia, who's also relationship, she's a transactional analyst, according to the Dr. Eric Byrne. So so we work on this stuff. Even though she's an expert, she falls, and she forgets too. And even though I've learned it, I forget. But we come back, and we remember that there is an art, there is a technique to relationships. I didn't know we were going in that tangent, but since you asked, that's some of the nuggets of wisdom along the way, personally.
Well, thank you. That makes sense, because I know in the past I've asked a gentleman, so how are you feeling? They just have to draw a blank. They just look at me. They don't know how to answer.
I'm feeling hungry. I need a beer. That's how I'm feeling, like a beer. It's true, that men want to know. I want to tell you what I think. That can go into mansplaining and all those, obnoxious directions too. But then the problem is that if you want your partner, let's say whoever's the female in the relationship, you don't want to go with what do you think. There will be a time. Let's say we're planning a trip, a vacation. Okay, what do you think? Should we go here? Should we go there? What do you think? Now we're both on a masculine level. But if it's like, I feel that you weren't listening to me when I was talking. Well, I feel you don't understand when I'm busy. So now what are we doing? We're both in the feminine, and now we're having a bitch fight. I didn't mean to go in this direction, but you're asking me, relate what I've learned, and this has been really the most important teachings of the last 5 years. I'm always been a seeker. I was in India at age 21 already in a traditional yoga ashram, as I said. So I've always been a seeker, and this is, talk about spirituality. This is the real thing, can't BS anybody here, or you're BSing yourself if you try to BS in a relationship. Anyway.
Yeah, and at the age of 21, what caused you to want to go to India? What were you looking for? I mean, did you find what you were looking for?
Wow. I'm gonna confess, we did take LSD, we did take psilocybin, we did take these magic mushrooms, etc. And so we did trip. And in that sense, and if you're doing it correctly, I mean, these are mescaline, these are considered to be medicine, not recreational drugs. And there was a purity. I mean, you could party with them, of course, but the way, I met some teachers along the way who said, okay, we are going to ingest this down. Now we're going to listen to this music together. And, we're going to understand this music together. And now, yes, you are seeing mandalas, swirling in front of you, and just enjoy that, don't get tripped up. Anyway, I don't mean to go too deeply into this, but at a certain point, we were following a guru named Ram Dass. Maybe Dr. Richard Alpert, he was a psychologist. He had the distinction, he and Tim Leary, they had the distinction of being the only professors to ever be kicked out of Harvard University. So we were following these guys, like, what does Ram Dass say now? First, we were all tripping together. Then he was saying, well, now we're going to stop tripping and we're going to get into spirituality. Everything, all those connections that you saw, now we're going to take away the drug aspect. And now we're going to just find all that within ourselves. And connecting out. That's a lot. Am I going too fast? Is this too much? Okay. I didn't know we're going into all this, Kimberly, but I told you I'm an open book. And that's what led me to India, because Ram Dass went to India. I didn't go to the same ashram or the same guru he did. But then all of a sudden, all these Americans are now heading to India, like, George Harrison, different people are heading to India now. So that's what led me there. And I felt very comfortable there, in fact, and I'm not saying they're talking about past lives or anything, but I've been back to India 4 times. I've lived there for short periods of time. I've done business there. It feels like there's a relationship I have with that country. And then I got through some deeper meditation practice called Vipassana meditation, I got into the teachings of the Buddha. And then I became, this is another part of me, I don't know if anybody's interested, but I became a celibate monk for almost 10 years. I was really trying to follow the path of the original teachings of the Buddha. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have any real guru. There's a fellow named S.N. Goenka, who was the head of Vipassana, but he just taught the technique. It was not, you didn't bring him flowers or anything like that. Anyway, so that took me deeper into the teachings of the Buddha. And if anybody's interested, I have these long, 2-hour-long, boring talks on the original teachings of the Buddha on YouTube. I always preface it that way, because even when I've given the talk, they usually have given them live and recorded. People are like, imagine that, 2 hours, just blah, blah, blah. And, I became very lay scholar, I would say. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I don't do that much anymore. I'm teaching a mindfulness class next week, actually, here in Juno Beach. Nice. So I still meditate every day, almost every day, I should say. And we do our intentions. In the meantime, I found another spiritual teacher named Dr. Reverend Michael Beckwith. I don't know if you know Beckwith. He's in LA. And I was teaching yoga meditation at his retreats and at his center. And so I've always been interested in personal growth, and in connecting to the larger aspects and the near aspects too. That's what a relationship forces you to do. You can sit in a cave and you might start to know some universal things. But if you're sitting with a woman, then that is a real way to learn about oneself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, there's people, like you read your book, of different faiths. So I'm a Christian. Mm-hmm. There's people listening who are from all different faiths.
Sure.
How important is faith to your life?
Well, let's define faith. Well, how do you define faith, please? You tell me. How do you define faith?
So from my point of view, faith is, I have a higher power, which is God, Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I put my faith in for my life. I feel like God breathes me every day. That's why I have life.
Mm-hmm. It's, would you say faith is kind of a belief or a conviction that this is real and this is the truth and the way? And, I've studied the New Testament. In fact, we're reading a brilliant book right now called What Do You Do with the Chocolate Jesus? Uh-huh. About, all the commercialization of Christianity through the ages and contradictions and so on. So I'm very interested in the New Testament and the teachings of Jesus. And faith, of course, is an important aspect. He himself said it, I don't know the words, but, have faith in me and the Father and so on, and you will attain. Now, the Buddha's approach was different. The Buddha said, no faith, scrutinize and investigate. He was a 20th century guy in that sense. He was very scientific. So what does he mean, scrutinize, investigate? First, he says, scrutinize, investigate the teacher, and then scrutinize, investigate the teachings themselves. Then scrutinize, investigate the community, who hangs out with the teacher. Then you develop faith. Yeah, this is credible. Yeah, this I can believe it because I've done this. I've really looked at this guy. Now,
Mhm.
I don't want to give my whole talk here, but what is it that you are scrutinizing, investigating when you're in the teacher, the teachings, and what is it you're looking for? So this is what the Buddha is so brilliant, because he goes deeper and deeper in a very logical, scientific way. He says, scrutinize, does the teacher abstain from killing?
Mhm.
Okay, there's 5. Does he abstain from taking what is not given? Which is different than stealing. If you think about it, it's even more subtle than do not steal, the commandments and so on. Does he abstain from illicit sex? Now, this is very important in the guru world, in the whatever faith you're in,
Mhm.
people get busted
Mhm.
for their sexuality, even though they have big churches or big synagogues or big temples, etc., big mosques. They get busted for their sexual proclivities and so on. And then does a teacher abstain from lying? Okay, from not telling the truth. Does the teacher abstain from intoxicants? So that's what you're investigating, those 5 things. Now, what about the teachings? Do the teachings teach that? Those 5 things.
Mhm.
Does the community practice those 5 things? So it's very, very detailed. That's why a lot of people are drawn, not to that statue, the guy sitting there, which had nothing to do with it, and giving that incense and flowers. That has nothing to do with it. It's really when you dig into it, you realize this guy's like a 20th century guy. He was talking about particle physics 2,600 years ago. I won't go into that part, but that's in the, how one has faith.
I love that. And I've never heard that distinction before. I haven't studied the Buddha, but that was
I've
very
got these
clear,
2-hour long, boring,
amazing
but
distinction.
that's the brilliance, when you find a teacher, and Beckwith is that way too, Michael Beckwith, and he breaks things down like that too. And I think in a modern sense, faith is maybe people are more cynical, aren't they? I mean, there seems, because of the information age, we get information and you see the duplicity of people, or you see the hypocrisy that goes on, and in the religious world, political world, economic world, business world, sports world, it goes on. So you want to have faith in the Olympics and in the purity of the sports, but then even we're watching a program on fixing, sports fixing, how different sports fixing, sumo wrestling. Believe it or not, this long detail, it's called Freakonomics. It was the best-selling book, Freakonomics, and they made it into this nice documentary. And they documented how they were able to figure out which of these sumo wrestlers are throwing their matches. And it's supposed to be very pure. There's a Shinto priest and doing the ritual before each, and there's a lot of ritualistic types of things. But so I'm just saying there is a certain cynicism that develops in different areas of our lives, and we find out because information is flowing now, thank God. So one is, I think me and others are trying to say, well, what's real here? What can we really, and that one of my books, which is one of the least popular of my children's book, is called What is True? What is true? And we're trying to teach the children critical thinking skills to be able to discern between a video game and real life. Some of these video games are very, sexually violent and have, anyway, or movies or TV shows or characters or, singers or heroes, and try to really discern, and then you can have faith. Oh yeah, this guy's a good guy. I've really looked into this guy. Yeah, I'm going to put my money you know, with this guy, let's say, oh, this woman.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, you're seeing this Elizabeth Holmes. So women are duplicitous also, but people had so much faith, they just threw her millions of dollars.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll just rant on if you let me, Kimberly.
Yes. Well,
You
it's
know,
great.
I'm a
It's-
public speaker too, so I like talking. Good. No,
Yeah.
you go ahead. Yeah,
So, I'm an optometrist. So
yes.
I'm helping people with their vision,
Mhm,
literally, and also just, I also specialize in behavioral optometry. So I'm working with their brains, their vision, and
mhm,
the world can look very different depending on how you're looking at it, which
mhm.
angle you're looking at it from. So should we believe our eyes, or are there other senses where we should be checking in to see where's truth?
Yeah, yeah. I've read a little bit about you, and I don't understand everything you do, but I'm sure that it is related not just to the muscles of the eyes, but how we use the eyes and what causes us to use the eyes that way, and how behaviors affect the literal how we see things.
Mhm.
And of course, I'm sorry to go back to the Buddha, but it's all about that download that we receive. And even Dr. Beckwith says, let me see if I can say right. Um, uh, are you seeing what you believe? Or are you believing what you see? Are you seeing what you believe? And that's what we do, because there's a download, our DNA, our heritage. I'm Italian. That's why we like red wine. Don't ask me why I like red wine. That's why I'm our culture, our parents, our church, synagogue, mosque, our school, our media. So this is all downloaded to us before age 3. I mean, in the womb, of course, too. You know all this. I'm not telling you anything new. So when you say, what is the truth? Is it what we see? Is it what we hear? Is it what we smell? Yeah, the sense, and also the logic, the mental sense. Oh, this makes sense. Da, 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 therefore, da, 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 da. So one of the things I've learned is that what we see here, etc., can be deceiving, or maybe not deceiving, but maybe not the whole truth. It's called the God's eye view. Now, who's got a God's eye view of things? Well, I think this, and I studied it, and that's why that's right, And then people come on like this, and like they're experts. But the Buddha even talked about, for instance, karma. Why is this person sick? Why is this person rich? Why is this, we ask ourselves, why are 6 million Jews murdered? Why is these Ukrainians attacked? What is the karma? Means action. How did the causality, the whole chain of causation, come to this? Okay, who knows? We can have theories of how this happened, and that's what historians try to do. And but even the Buddha said, don't try to figure out karma. Don't try to even figure it out. It's one of the 4 imponderables, okay, that it will only cause you confusion and vexation. So a humble person will say, this is what I see. I mean, this is what I think. And you say, maybe, this is the way it is, and you realize, like, I don't have a God's eye view. I have an opinion based on this study I've done, but ultimately, what do I really know from this, little? But yeah, how the eyes are affected. Patricia had eye sensitivity, Erlin's syndrome. I think that's a light sensitivity and like that. And so she couldn't really read in the classroom, and they thought, and then she became disruptive because she got bored, and nobody knew what the heck was going on with her. Later on, it was discovered she had an eye problem. So her behavior then changed. I
Right.
think that's what you're talking about, right?
Exactly. You can change so much with quite small changes
Hmm.
to the vision.
Yeah, I mean, and that's both kinds of vision,
Mhm. Both kinds.
third eye vision
Mhm.
and your two-eye vision.
That's right.
And you know that, I mean, right? People see the same accident from different angles and have different versions of how it happened. Phew. So humility is a difficult,
Mhm.
it's in short supply today. You
Mhm.
don't really meet a lot of people who really, you know.
That's true. Some of the even most perfect people. I was reading again the story of Job from the Bible, and Job is someone who suffered because the devil decided to take away his children and his family and his everything he owned, and and it was saying, God was saying in the story that, you know, look at my servant Job. He is righteous. He is checking off all the boxes. And in the end, we find out that Job had the sin, if you will, or weakness of self-righteousness, because he was checking off all the boxes. He was keeping the law. He was successful, but what
Yeah,
wasn't in check was he thought he was better than he was.
right. Well, that's the thing, that's, and that we don't, this is me, let's say. I mean, this is Job. Job says, I didn't know this about myself.
Right.
Wow. Like I had to go through all this to find out this, and I'm looking at myself every day in the mirror and I don't see this.
Mhm.
So that is why I believe and I have faith and I have credible experience that meditation helps,
Mhm.
to see what's really going on inside of us, and relationship really helps to uncover whatever subtle or gross types of behavior patterns that we have, and Reverend Michael says, look, we are going to evolve. That's just the nature of the universe. The universe is still expanding, like from the Big Bang. It's actually going faster at the edges. You would
Mhm.
think it would be slowing down after whatever 12 billion years, but this is what the astrophysicists tell us. So he says, you are going to evolve, because if you believe we are created in the image and likeness of God, well, the universe is God and the universe is expanding. That's his, okay? And so basically, you are going to evolve. The only thing is, you have two choices. How are you going to evolve? All right? You're either going to evolve through insight, which could be meditation, which could be a relationship, which could be something, or you're going to evolve through a kick in the pants. Now, what's your choice? I mean, that's the only choice you have. You don't have a choice. That you will evolve. You will learn that lesson, Job or Etan or Kimberly. You will learn that lesson. How do you want to learn it?
Mhm. Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
I've said that prayer before. I'd say, you know, God, everything's going really well now. So if you need to know something, please let me know, because I really like how it's going, and I
Yeah.
really don't want to have something fall on me to figure out that I'm doing something wrong.
Yes. Yes. Well, and that's humility. Again, going back to humility and openness and being a seeker yourself, of larger realities, not just the ego individual needs that we all have,
Mhm.
but knowing that there's a lot more than that available to us too. Love, compassion, all those wonderful, expansive
Mhm.
capacities that we have. And you are an evolved person in that way that you would even ask for that. You say, and most people are too busy to get up in the morning and ask God. We have our little morning prayer that we've put together, Patricia and I, and part intentions. Please, God, show me how I must serve today.
Mhm.
Please, God, let me be the blessing in someone's life today. Let me be the answer to someone's prayer today. Please, God, let me see and know all the signs and miracles and wonders and gifts that abound all around us. So we're saying like, we're here, man,
Mhm.
lay it on us, whatever you got. We want to be examples. It goes on. I don't want to go through the whole thing, but we, like you're doing, we're opening ourselves up, saying like, we're enjoying life too. If there's anything we need to know, man, please let us know and we'll fix it.
That's right.
Promise. But most people get out of bed and they go for the coffee and they go there and get and look at their phone and um,
Mhm.
thank God, I've always been able to have some time. I've had jobs where I had to be there at 9 a.m., whatever, I've had that too. But I think we choose ultimately how we want to live these lives.
Mhm.
And my way is I like to have my mornings free, to meditate and to, open up a little bit. And I got plenty of work to do.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like everybody, I'm busy like everybody else, but there's a bigger reality too that I want to start my day to acknowledge that. The other thing about that Job story that bothers people who are critics of the Old Testament is like, it appears at the beginning of the story like God is very capricious.
Mhm.
It's like, instead of saying, get away from me, Satan. I don't want to talk to you about Job. I know this guy. He's a good guy. He takes the wager or whatever that is. And people saying, well, this God, as a supreme being, should he have gone that way?
Mhm.
Again, this is just applying modern logic or psychology to the persona of God,
Mhm.
which you get a lot more of if you're into the Old Testament.
Mhm.
Anyway, it's interesting because the Buddhists are different.
Mhm.
They're polytheists. There is no one supreme God. The Hindus have the supreme God. Brahma is the supreme God, and then there's all these other trinity and minor gods and goddesses. And there's this whole panoply of. But the Buddhist says, yeah, there's gods. There's very evolved persons who are no longer in the body, and they're in other dimensions, and he goes and visits them and they come and visit him, these different powerful gods and goddesses, but they're not to be worshipped. They're fallible too, because they're coming to the Buddha for advice from him, because they're at a certain high point of evolution, let's say, and they don't need bodies, they don't need food, they don't need air, they don't need sex, they don't need any of the human needs, but they're still in an evolutionary cycle, but the ordinary mortals can't see them or know them.
Mhm.
So that's just another way of looking.
Exactly. When you're talking about that, what came into my mind is this story that's been around forever. One of my favorite books called Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
Sure,
And
I
it talks
remember.
about how he was different than the pack to the point where they kicked him out. And when he was kicked out, he was flying as high as he wanted to now, but he was alone. But he
Mm.
practiced and he practiced and he was working on himself. And one day there appeared this glowing seagull beside him to guide him and to help him to the next level. When you were talking about those
Mm.
people who were,
Mhm.
passed on, but kind of still around, still going forward, you
Evolving.
reminded me of that story.
Well, one thing is, it is lonely at the top. I don't mean to be, not humble, but this, that's why I love Patricia so much. We really can talk. And like you and I are talking right now, I don't know how many people you can count on the fingers of your hand that you can have this kind of wide ranging, and we're familiar. We're talking the same language, you and I. It's not that, you know what I mean? But we have friends, but we cannot talk about these things
Mhm.
with them. this is going to be a dead end. It's never going to go anywhere with them. So it's wonderful, to meet a friend when you're flying up there alone, and there may be a couple of other friends you meet when you're there. But again, we mammals, we human mammals, we're herd animals, and there's safety, especially in the middle of the herd, there's safety. If you go to the edge of the herd, you're going to be a little suspicious, and you're out there in the danger zone a little bit, and and nobody wants to be out there. But we found that that's where the genius is. It's also the psychopaths out there too. But if you're willing to go into being alone, even for a few minutes, sitting in meditation alone, when I teach meditation, I say, don't even call it meditation, just call it sitting with myself for a few minutes. Just call it that. Don't put any name on it. But how many people would want to be alone with themselves? And let me tell you another thing. When I was into my Buddha monk stage, I used to attend these 10-day silent meditation retreats. And silent meaning no talking to anybody.
That's a very long time.
10 days.
10 days is, I'd have a hard time being quiet for one whole day, but 10 days.
No talking and no looking at anybody. Now, and breakfast is at 6:30 in the morning. Lunch is at 11:30, and then no more food after that. And then you're not supposed to even, you're supposed to bring enough clothing for the full 10 days. So there's no clothing washing. There's no distractions. They give you a nice place to sleep. They give you the food. There's plenty of food, as much as you want to eat. And there's 5 meditation periods where you sit for an hour. Okay. So yeah, you're in a meditation room with 80 people, but there's no talking. You're alone the whole, even when you're sitting in the dining room. Oh, and the females are separate, the males are separate. But if you're sitting next to somebody, you don't start chatting. You're just looking at your food, eating your food, and maintaining awareness, trying to maintain. And then when you finish your, I said there's 5 1-hour meditation that you're supposed to go to the meditation hall and sit together and meditate. When you finish with that 1 hour, they say, okay, you can stay here in the meditation room and meditate some more, or you can go to your room and meditate there. No phones, no writing materials, no reading materials. So when we're saying alone, that's the 10-day course. There's people who go to the 20-day course and the 30-day course and the 45-day course and the 90-day course, So when we're saying alone, that kind of aloneness is so scary for the human mammal who wants to be warm and rub up against another mammal and like that. Whew. But when you go that deep, the stuff that comes up, stuff that you don't want to think about ever again, even, stuff that you thought was done, you go very, very deep in that sense. And most of the people, when they come out of the 10-day aloneness meditation course, they go like, this is the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. And it's the best thing I've ever done in my life, Whew. But who's going to do that? But, what's interesting is the last day you're allowed to break what they call noble silence. And so then people start talking about you have lunch and everyone's like, it's like this massive noise going on. You find out this guy's a doctor, this guy's an accountant, this guy's a whatever fireman, and so you find out it's like people from all walks of life decided to take 10 days off and not go to the Bahamas. I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying, when you say flying alone, how deep is when, there's excuse me for ranting on, but there's a saint, a 19th century Indian saint named Ramakrishna, who I've studied, through his books and so on. He said, people talk about crossing the great ocean of illusion. that this is the world, the great ocean of illusion. People talk about crossing the great ocean of illusion, but really most people are happy just to take a day trip in the harbor. So I don't fault anybody. You know what I mean? It's just when we're having this kind of conversation, it's like, how far do you really want to go in that? All right,
Exactly.
I'll
So,
shut up. You
so
talk.
let's take it from there. So
Okay,
you went
we're
from
we're going to go
India,
on for 2 hours now.
India, meditation,
Mhm.
and then Hollywood. So
Hollywood.
Hollywood's flashy, surfacey. It seems like the total different from the
You are
10
so
day
smart,
silence
Kimberly.
to
You
the
are so
loud.
perceptive.
Yes.
Well, the good thing about me, I gotta say, compliment me, is that I've always been honest with myself. I may not have always been honest with that girl or that girl, but I'm just saying. So I knew that I had this really rambunctious side in me, and it was sexual too. And to me, Hollywood in LA represented like this mecca of sex and, illusion and beautiful women and this and that and, all this. And it is there, but there's a whole seamy underside, whole very nasty, seamy underside. It's not that glitter that young girls come from Nebraska thinking like that. So, I was honest with myself, even though I had been to India, I had done the meditation, I had done the course, 3-month, very arduous course. You lose a lot of weight, so I didn't look good when I got back home. In fact, my mom was really upset, but I realized, this is all good in theory, being celibate and being pure and being nice to people and compassionate. But I'm still a rambunctious kid from the Bronx, who still hasn't gotten all his yayas out. And so for me, that was a place where I felt I could just go and let that part of me express myself. And I did. And I felt like I did it. I felt like I was over with it. My teacher in India, my first guru, Dr. Ganapati, he had this expression. He said, when the fruit is ripe, it falls from the tree. When the fruit is ripe, it falls. So what he meant by that is when all those karmas and all the seeds in the fruit, when you're done with that, they just fall off of you and you're done with that.
Mm-hmm.
I had the same experience with smoking cigarettes. I smoked cigarettes for a long time, 1987, and one day I quit. I couldn't breathe anymore. I was in Hong Kong. There was the humidity. And then I never thought about a cigarette again. I never even thought about a cigarette again. I never had a desire. So I felt like going to Hollywood, I'm gonna do this thing once and for all. No holes barred. I did it, and then I was done. So I don't know if that explains it.
Yeah, it does.
And that's a dangerous course. I'm not telling young people to go, live out your fantasies like that, because then people get hurt or they get into drugs, they get into addictions, they get into bad stuff that they can't back out of, etc. But by the grace of God, I think God was always, on my shoulder there, come through some dangerous places I have. Mm-hmm. And I just say, by the grace of God, thank you. If I may say, add to that, because you're a Christian and you're a student of the Bible, of the New Testament, what Dr. Beckwith teaches, and there's a coterie of Aramaic scholars. And one of the ministers there, she's an Aramaic scholar, which was the language of Jesus, before Hebrew was Aramaic. And that whole last line where, according to King James Version, which comes from the German, which comes from the Roman, which comes from the Greek, these translations on, is that always ruined it for me as a writer. I thought this is a bad ending, and this ending doesn't make sense. Just as a story, I'm a writer, so I study story structure, and that he says at the end, Why hast thou forsaken me? It never made sense to me. And then when I started studying with Beckwith and his crowd, they said, no, in Aramaic, that's not what he said. It's been mistranslated, that what his last words were, for this hast thou made me. Which to me, as a story writer or as a believer, makes a lot more sense. I don't know how you feel about that.
It really does. Yes.
That translation, and I don't mean to sound, pretentious, but I feel that for this, God has made me, that for these years of my life, whatever it was, the last 10, 15 years of my life, where I got back on the path, where I was wandering around all these different places, for this hast thou made me, so that now I do feel complete. I'm not perfect, obviously, but I feel like, whew, I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing here. And all this stuff out here, this is irrelevant to me. What you might call temptations or material types of things. I've done it. I've done more than you've ever done. You know what I mean? So I'm not even interested in that sense. But and I think you want, as you come to being 72 or 82, you want to feel like you've left a mark. You've created something, like with your practice. You've helped so many people with your podcast. Just walking in the supermarket, somebody meets you and, gets a nice feeling. Maybe they were down, but you just smiled and you said something and that relieved them. And this is, to me, and me, I mentioned to you my 16 children's books and so on. To me, this is like, whew, this is more gratifying than anything. Thank God I have enough material, needs are taken care of. But in the sense that, what more could a person want than just that interconnectivity with the universe, with people, with animals, with the ocean, with whoever you meet sitting next to you in that airplane.
Beautiful. That's beautiful.
Right.
So I want to change subjects for a minute, and let's talk about your publishing company. Tell me what you're doing now, who you serve.
Okay.
If people wanted to find out about you or work with you, what do they do?
Well, what we do is, we are not a traditional publisher who will look at your manuscript, eventually if the agent gets your manuscript to the publisher, all of that long process that I told you about. So people come to me because they know I've been publishing and I've published other people's books that they refer. And the thing is that we don't have that kind of vetting situation. It's a democratic situation here, our company, meaning that if you want to publish, I'll help you do everything professionally, beautifully, whatever your topic is. And we've done cookbooks, we've done textbooks, we've done everything, children's books, self-help books, religious books. I mean, all manner of books. I mentioned cookbooks, I don't know, art books. Anyway, but you do have to pay me to do it. I'm going to do it for you. And you pay me whatever you need. If you need an illustrator, it's going to be this much if you need a printer, it's going to be this much. So whatever printing service you need, we'll take care of it. It's not me personally. I have a nice team. And then once the book is printed, we hand the book to you and you sell it. We keep no sales. We keep no commission. We have nothing to do with it anymore as far as that goes. Whereas the traditional model is you might get an advance based on 10% of sales, 10% of the cover price of the book. So I just call it a democratic process, and we've helped people. People say, I don't have that kind of money. First of all, it's not that kind of money, but you say, I don't have the money to do this. Well, really, have you ever heard of Kickstarter? Or even if you don't have a rich uncle, whatever, or friends, well, we've helped people with Kickstarter, raise the money and reach the goal. And then, their friends and their family is involved now, and we publish their book. So there's a lot to talk about. If anybody is interested, Veronica Lane Books. And it's just ETAN, my first name, ETAN at veronicalanebooks.com.
Beautiful.
That's my
you.
plug. Thank you for allowing that.
Yes, yes. So
I love it. I love it because I work with all manner of people and books and material now, and I'm good at it. I'm good at it. And because of my eye, I developed 20 years in the gallery. I really have a good visual sense of creating covers and with illustrators and the interior design of the book and so on. So anyway, I'll help anybody who calls me, or emails me. Yeah.
thanks. So what gives you the most happiness and fulfillment at this point?
I'm gonna say looking at my girlfriend.
All right.
I look at her, I smile.
That's beautiful.
Even when we're having a little of this, we're like, that's funny, And then going downstairs and going into the Atlantic Ocean, that gives me a big thrill. And then we developed nice friends. We've been here in South Florida for about 8 months. So going out to dinner, and I have my martini and, have fun with friends. And teaching a mindfulness class next Tuesday, and going to the Montessori School's annual conference that's in Nashville next week as well. And then, so these kinds of, just all of it is fun and nice. I don't really have any down. I'm pissed off at Vladimir Putin like everybody else, and my heart is breaking for that. So. But I mean, on a personal level, all of these momentary pleasures and intellectual pleasures, spiritual pleasures, physical pleasures, I just feel, thank you, God. And you got to say that 50 times a day, and we do. Thank you, God. I say Allahu Akbar. I say Baruch Hashem. I say it in every way, Hare Krishna. I say it every way there is to say it. Yeah, I don't care what language it's in. It's just like, thank you. That's how,
That's beautiful to always be in thankfulness, always
Yeah.
be in communication and connection.
I mean, just the fact that you could breathe, Patricia says, what? The people go, how you doing? She goes, well, I'm looking down at the daisies, not up.
That's right.
Just that, you should be grateful.
Mm-hmm.
But people, they get into their wants and to their aversions, desire and aversion, as Buddha taught, and then you get into this, agitation, conflict, etc. Anyway, we could talk for a long time.
We could, but it has to come to an end sometime. So
yeah, no, I appreciate how you're so open and giving and letting me rant on and so on. So,
well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you.
Yes, and I have one last question.
Okay, I'll try to keep it short.
Okay, I have one last question.
What is
your best advice for living an incredible, amazing life?
Okay, well, that first of all, set your intentions. A lot of people, Reverend Michael Beckwith says, people walking around with intention deficit disorder. Intention, what do you want? Yeah, they got to think about what they want. You got to know your intentions from the moment you wake up. And we start with our spiritual intentions. Those are our intentions. Then I know what my worldly intentions are. Okay, so I say number one, know your intentions. Okay, and with that intention, have what is called the right view of life. Have the right view of life. And in the Buddhist sense, that means know that there is a reaction to every action, that there's a consequence. The 3 karmas: verbal, mental, and physical karma. Every action that you do has a consequence. And know that, and that if you harm another, you're harming yourself, and all of that kind of thing. So I say right intention, right view, and then right effort. Just pure effort. You keep away from things that are not ethical, immoral, and you effort things that are, sometimes you have to effort things like that and put those things with an effort to the side and effort to get the good that's in us.
Mhm.
I would say that way, intention and right view and effort. Not very original, I'm sorry, but
Well, thank you so much.
okay.
And we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, Kimberly, thank you. Okay.